Jasmine Crockett stormed onto the brightly lit CNN town hall stage in Washington, her eyes fierce, her role as a guest panelist, a chance to confront Attorney General Pam Bondi over her threats to silence her Musk criticism. The audience buzzed, their cheers and boos a tense clash, split between Crockett's fiery supporters and Bondi's law and order fans. Bondi sat poised, her face calm, her notes stacked with Tesla vandalism cases, her voice low, ready to defend her warnings. The moderator Anderson Cooper leaned forward, his voice tight, sensing a storm. "Jasmine, Pam, let's keep it sharp," he said, his eyes wary, the stage a spark away from chaos. Crockett slammed her fist on the table, her voice bold, her fury unleashed from the start. "You're a Trump puppet, Pam," she said, her glare locked on Bondi. "You threatened me for speaking truth. Your Musk obsession kills free speech." The crowd roared, some chanting her name, others hissing, her insult echoing her 50,000 times MSNBC defiance. Bondi's eyes narrowed, her voice cool, precise. "Puppet," she said, waving a report, 3 Tesla arson cases charged as terrorism. "You're inciting violence, Jasmine. Your words burn dealerships." The studio shook, Crockett's face tightening, Bondi's counter a blow to her fire. Bondi's jab fueled Crockett's rage, her voice rising, a raw edge cutting through the noise. "Violence," she said, her eyes blazing. "I said nonviolent protests, Pam. You're lying to protect Musk, a crook with federal contracts." The crowd gasped, some clapping, others booing, her crook jab a nod to her House Judiciary. Speech. Bondi's lips curled, her voice steady, ruthless. "Crook?" she said, pulling a DOJ memo, $2 billion in Tesla property damage. "Your Tesla takedown fuels chaos, Jasmine. You're the threat." The audience murmured, some swaying to Bondi, Crockett's hands clenching, her insult backfiring. Producers in the control room watched, their screens flashing, the live feed spiking with millions tuned in. Clips of Crockett's insult and Bondi's stats were trending, splitting the nation, some praising Crockett's heart, others Bondi's law. A producer whispered, "This is war." Crockett's team backstage clutched her oversight committee notes, ready to fuel her fight. Bondi's aide in the wings texted DOJ allies, her voice sharp. "Pam's got her," she said, pushing. Tesla crime stats online. The nation was hooked, the clash a bleeding wound. The audience's energy shifted, some drawn to Bondi's icy facts, others clinging to Crockett's passion, the room a powder keg of rage. "You're a disgrace," Crockett said, her voice fierce, her eyes boring into Bondi. "You protect Musk, not America. I'm the people's voice." The crowd erupted, some standing, others shouting, her words a desperate strike. Bondi's face stayed blank, her voice cold. "People?" she said, flashing a poll, 60% support for DOJ's Tesla crackdown. "I'm saving, you're destroying." The stage pulsed, Crockett's insult a storm, Bondi's response a steel wall. The nation braced for more. Jasmine Crockett's fiery insult scorched the Washington CNN town hall stage, her branding of Pam Bondi as a Trump puppet igniting a volatile clash. The audience's cheers and jeers a turbulent clash of divided passions. The studio pulsed with raw tension, some spectators swaying to Bondi's cold facts, others clinging to Crockett's blazing heart. The room a jagged knot of fraying loyalties. Crockett leaned forward, her eyes fierce, her oversight committee. Notes clutched tightly, her voice a sharpened blade aimed at Bondi's legal armor. Bondi sat steady, her DOJ report stacked high, her words a precise counterstrike slicing back. Anderson Cooper gripped his notes, his voice strained, his eyes darting between them. "Let's stay focused," he said, his words barely holding the chaos, the stage a breath from eruption. Crockett's voice roared, clear, relentless, her words a torrent slashing at Bondi's calm. "You're a liar, Pam," she said, her glare locked on Bondi. "Your Tesla crackdown's a sham. You're shielding Musk, not justice." The crowd erupted, some chanting her name, others murmuring, her attack echoing her MSNBC 50,000 times defiance. Bondi's fingers tapped. Her reports, her voice cool, unyielding. "Justice?" she said, pulling a file. 12 Tesla vandalism arrests linked to takedown rallies. "Your words spark crime, Jasmine. You're the sham." The studio quaked, Crockett's face flushing, Bondi's stats a wall against her fire. Bondi's evidence stoked Crockett's fury, her voice a raw snarl, her words slashing with desperate force. "Crime," she said, her eyes blazing. "I called for peace, Pam. You're twisting my words. You're Musk's guard dog, not America's." The crowd gasped, some clapping, others booing. Her guard dog jab a nod to her judiciary hearing. Rant. Bondi's eyes glinted, her voice icy, brutal. "Guard dog?" she said, waving a DOJ memo, $500 million in Tesla sabotage costs. "Your takedown fuels terror, Jasmine. You're the danger." The audience roared. More cheering Bondi, Crockett's hands trembling, her insult crumbling under Bondi's facts. In the control room, producers scrambled, their screens blazing, the live feed spiking with millions watching. Clips of Crockett's guard dog jab and Bondi's stats split the internet, some rallying for Crockett's passion, others for Bondi's law. A producer gripped a phone tracking viral posts. "It's a bloodbath," she said. Crockett's team, backstage, held her oversight notes, desperate to fuel her fight. Bondi's aide in the shadows texted DOJ allies, her voice sharp. "Pam's breaking her," she said, pushing Tesla crime data online. The nation was gripped, the clash a raw, open wound. The audience's tide turned sharper, more swaying to Bondi's calm, their cheers for Crockett fading. The room a crucible of rage. "You're a sellout," Crockett said, her voice clear, shaking, her eyes boring into Bondi. "You serve Musk's billions. I fight for workers, not you." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others quiet, her words a fading blow. Bondi's face stayed blank, her voice cold. "Workers?" she said, flashing a report. 80% public support for DOJ's crackdown. "I'm protecting. You're inciting." The stage thrummed, Crockett's insult a storm, Bondi's response a steel fortress. The nation braced for her next shock. Jasmine Crockett's desperate fury surged through the Washington CNN town hall stage, her trembling accusation branding Pam Bondi a sellout for serving Musk's billions, a fading spark against Bondi's relentless legal onslaught. The audience's roars tilted heavily toward Bondi's icy precision, their cheers for Crockett dwindling to a faint murmur, the studio a jagged fracture of lost loyalties. Crockett leaned closer, her eyes wild, her oversight committee notes shaking in her hands, her voice a raw blade honed to pierce Bondi's unyielding facts. Bondi sat poised, her DOJ reports a towering shield, her words a surgical strike, cutting deeper. Anderson Cooper clutched his notes, his voice hoarse, his eyes wide with alarm. "We're on the edge," he said, his words lost in the chaos, the stage a heartbeat from collapse. Crockett's voice erupted, hoarse, ferocious, her words a frantic lunge at Bondi's core. "You're a fraud, Pam," she said, her glare locked on Bondi. "Your DOJ protects Musk's empire, not people. You're his lapdog, not our law." The crowd stirred, some clapping weakly, others silent. Her lapdog jab a faint echo of her judiciary hearing fire. Bondi's fingers swiped her reports, her voice cold, relentless. "Lapdog?" she said, pulling a file. 20 Tesla sabotage, convictions tied to takedown rhetoric. "Your words breed chaos, Jasmine. You're the fraud." The studio rocked, Crockett's face contorting. Bondi's evidence a hammer crushing her defiance. Bondi's stats drove Crockett's rage to a breaking point, her voice a raw howl, her words slashing wildly. "Chaos?" she said, her eyes fierce, trembling. "I speak for workers, Pam. Your lies shield Musk. I'm truth. You're corruption." The crowd gasped, some murmuring, others booing, her attack a shadow of her 50,000 times MSNBC stand. Bondi's eyes hardened, her voice brutal, clear. "Truth?" she said, waving a DOJ report. $1 billion in Tesla damages from takedown protests. "You're fueling terror, Jasmine. I'm stopping it." The audience roared, most cheering Bondi, Crockett's hands shaking, her insult buckling under Bondi's relentless facts. Producers in the control room watched, their pulses racing, the live feed spiking with millions glued to the clash. Clips of Crockett's lapdog insult and Bondi's stats tore through the internet, some mourning her heart, others praising Bondi's law. A producer clutched a tablet, tracking viral clips. "She's sinking," she said. Crockett's team backstage gripped her oversight notes, their faces pale, unable to save her. Bondi's aide in the wings grinned, her voice fierce. "Pam's crushing her," she said, amplifying DOJ's Tesla crackdown online. The nation was riveted, the clash a bleeding scar. The audience's chants for Bondi drowned the stage. Crockett's, supporters a fading whisper. The room a crucible of her despair. "You're a traitor," Crockett said, her voice broken, pleading, her eyes locked on Bondi. "You betray America for Musk. I'm its voice, not yours." The crowd murmured, some shaking heads, others silent, her words a dying ember. Bondi's face stayed blank, her voice cold. "Voice?" she said, showing a poll, 70% backing DOJ's actions. "I'm defending. You're destroying." The stage thrummed, Crockett's insult a shattered storm, Bondi's response a steel trap. The nation braced for her next shocking blow. News screens blazed with the showdown, Crockett's cries and Bondi's stats a wildfire. The audience's turn a seismic shift across the nation. Cooper's voice faltered, his hands tense, struggling to hold the stage. "We're out of time," he said, his words a faint plea. But Crockett's glare was shattered, her voice raw, her fight a final gasp against Bondi's unyielding facts. The crowd poised for Bondi's next response to shock the nation in the brutal, unforgiving clash. Jasmine Crockett's crumbling resolve pulsed through the Washington CNN town hall stage, her broken cry branding Pam Bondi a traitor for betraying America drowned by Bondi's relentless legal barrage. The audience's chants now overwhelmingly for Bondi's cold precision. The crowd's fire for Crockett had faded to a flicker, their cheers swallowed by Bondi's supporters, the studio a raw chasm of her defeat. Crockett slumped forward, her eyes red, her oversight committee notes trembling in her hands, her voice, a desperate shard aimed at piercing Bondi's ironclad facts. Bondi leaned back, her DOJ reports a blazing fortress, her words a final blade to end Crockett's fight. Anderson Cooper gripped the table, his voice hoarse, his eyes wide with dread. "We're losing it," he said, his words buried in the roar, the stage a wound ready to burst. Crockett's voice surged, raw, frantic, her words a last frantic strike at Bondi's heart. "You're a coward, Pam," she said, her glare locked. On Bondi, her voice trembling. "You hide behind Musk's money. I'm fighting for truth. You're his pawn." The crowd murmured, some silent, others booing. Her pawn jab a faint echo of her judiciary hearing fury. Bondi's fingers tapped her reports, her voice icy, merciless. "Pawn?" she said, flashing a file. 30 Tesla vandalism cases tied. To take down rhetoric. "Your words spark terror, Jasmine. You're the coward." The studio roared, the audience fully Bondi's, Crockett's face collapsing. Bondi's stats a guillotine on her rage. Bondi's evidence, snapped Crockett's spirit. Her voice a trembling sob, her words crumbling in despair. "Terror?" she said, her eyes fierce, wet. "I speak for justice, Pam. Your lies protect Musk. I'm the people. You're nothing." The crowd hissed, some shaking heads, her 50,000 times echo a hollow cry. Bondi's eyes glinted, her voice brutal, clear. "Nothing?" she said, pulling a DOJ memo, $1.5 billion in Tesla sabotage losses. "You're inciting ruin, Jasmine. I'm saving America." The audience erupted, their cheers a tidal wave, Crockett's body shaking, her insult obliterated by Bondi's unyielding truth. In the control room, producers stood frozen, their screens blazing, the live feed spiking with millions watching Crockett's fall. Clips of her coward insult and Bondi's stats consumed the internet, some weeping for her heart, others praising Bondi's clarity. A producer dropped her phone, her voice hollow. "She's done," she said. Crockett's team backstage clutched useless oversight notes, their faces ashen, unable to save her. Bondi's aide in the wings pumped her fist, her voice fierce. "Pam's ended her," she said, flooding online with DOJ's wins. The nation was transfixed, the clash a bleeding ruin. The audience's roars for Bondi overwhelmed the stage, Crockett's last supporters mute, the room a requiem for her voice. "You're a disgrace," she whispered, her voice gone, her eyes locked on Bondi. "You've sold justice for Musk. I'm its heart." The crowd gasped, some silent, others chanting Bondi, her words of final breath. Bondi's face stayed blank, her voice cold. "Heart?" she said, showing a poll, 75% backing DOJ's crackdown. "I'm justice. You're chaos." The stage pulsed, Crockett's insult a shattered relic, Bondi's response a steel cage. The nation stunned by her shocking blow. Newsrooms blazed with Bondi's triumph, Crockett's cries and Bondi's stats a firestorm. The audience's betrayal a seismic quake. Crockett sat frozen, her voice a sob, her hands limp as Bondi's words, "Your chaos," echoed. The crowd's roars grew, Cooper's voice lost. The cameras locked on Bondi's calm. Crockett's glare faded, her fight dead. The stage, a ruin. Bondi stood tall, her reports a smoking gun, her response a scar that shocked the nation, leaving Crockett broken in the wreckage of their brutal, unforgiving clash. Jasmine Crockett's shattered spirit hung heavy in the Washington CNN town hall stage, her faltering cry branding Pam Bondi a disgrace for selling justice buried under Bondi's relentless legal onslaught. The audience's chants for Bondi, a crushing tide that silenced Crockett's fading voice. The crowd's loyalty to Crockett had crumbled to ash, their cheers now a distant memory, the studio a raw abyss of her defeat. Crockett sat hunched, her eyes wet, her oversight committee, notes limp in her hands, her voice a broken gasp desperate to pierce Bondi's unyielding facts. Bondi leaned forward, her DOJ reports a blazing arsenal, her words a final shocking blade to end Crockett's fight. Anderson Cooper clutched the table, his voice gone, his eyes wide with shock. "We're done," he whispered, his words lost. In the roar, the stage a graveyard of Crockett's fire. Crockett's voice cracked, a raw, pleading sob, her words a last frantic claw at Bondi's heart. "You're a monster, Pam," she said, her glare locked on Bondi, tears streaking. "You shield Musk's crimes. I'm America's voice. You're his tool." The crowd murmured, some silent, others booing, her monster jab a dying echo of her judiciary hearing passion. Bondi's fingers tapped her reports, her voice cold, merciless. "Tool," she said, flashing a file, 40 Tesla sabotage convictions linked to takedown rhetoric. "Your words breed terror, Jasmine. You're the monster." The studio roared, the audience wholly Bondi's, Crockett's face collapsing, Bondi's stats a guillotine on her defiance. Bondi's final blow snapped Crockett's resolve. Her voice a trembling whimper, her words dissolving in despair. "Terror," she said, her eyes fierce, broken. "I fight for workers, Pam. Your lies bury them. I'm truth. You're filth." The crowd hissed, some shaking heads, her 50,000 times echo a hollow cry. Bondi's eyes glinted, her voice brutal, clear. "Filth?" she said, pulling a DOJ report, $2 billion in Tesla damages from takedown protests. "You're chaos, Jasmine. I'm law. America sees it." The audience erupted, their cheers a tsunami. Crockett's body trembling, her insult obliterated by Bondi's shocking truth. In the control room, producers stood frozen, their screens blazing, the live feed spiking with millions watching Crockett's ruin. Clips of her monster insult and Bondi's stats consumed the internet, some mourning her heart, others hailing Bondi's justice. A producer dropped her tablet, her voice hollow. "She's gone," she said. Crockett's team, backstage, clutched useless oversight notes, their faces ashen, unable to save her. Bondi's aide in the wings pumped her fist, her voice fierce. "Pam's buried her," she said, flooding online with DOJ's triumphs. The nation was transfixed, the clash a bleeding scar. The audience's roars for Bondi drowned the stage, Crockett's last supporters mute, the room a requiem for her voice. "I can't," she whispered, her voice gone, her eyes locked on Bondi. "You've crushed us, me, Justice." The crowd gasped, some silent, others chanting Bondi, her words a final breath. Bondi's face stayed blank, her voice cold. "Justice?" she said, showing a poll 80% backing DOJ's crackdown. "I'm America, you're nothing," the stage pulsed. Crockett's insult a shattered ruin. Bondi's response a steel hammer, shocking the nation with its brutal force. Newsrooms erupted with Bondi's victory. Crockett's sobs and Bondi's stats a wildfire. The audience's betrayal a seismic quake. Crockett staggered, her voice a sob, her hands dropping her notes as she turned, fleeing the stage, the crowd's roars chasing her. Bondi sat tall, her reports a smoking gun, her response a scar that stunned America. Cooper's face fell, the cameras cut, leaving the stage empty, Crockett's shattered exit a wound, Bondi's brutal, shocking triumph, a shadow over her ruined fire, the nation reeling from the clash's merciless end.